Although, and some of you will not like hearing one or two of these names, these are pretty polarizing politicians that have come together to work on a bipartisan bill. Again, these things don't happen very often where you read them and they make sense and will work. Now, I have some questions. What are a couple of senators doing legislating college sports? Have you not looked at everything that's going on? Just everything? And you think that this is something that you should use your time on? That's a fair question. It's one I have. I think they should, try to fix, important stuff that impacts our lives. However, they actually are onto something here. Two senators will introduce the bill. It's expected to get released maybe later today, if not into tomorrow. Marsha Blackburn, the Republican from Tennessee, and Cory Booker, the Democrat from New Jersey. Paul probably rolled his eyes at that name, but stay with me, Paul, because they're actually doing something right. Will introduce the bipartisan bill. They're calling it the NCAA Accountability Act of 2021 that establishes strict requirements of the long maligned NCAA infractions process, overhauling the operation by involving the Department of Justice and the Attorney General. Again, those people should have more important things to do, but hear them out. Reading from Ross Dellinger, by the way, friend of the show, great reporter at Sports Illustrated. The 10-page bill obtained by Ross Dellinger and scheduled for release later Tuesday is an attempt to streamline, shorten, and bring greater equity into an NCAA investigative arm that has drawn harsh criticism from virtually every corner of college athletics. That is an understatement from Ross there. It has now caught the ire of high-ranking congressional leaders at a time when college sports industry has faced its most extreme scrutiny. I'll skip a little so you know actually what is going on. The bill requires the NCAA their inquiries, so their investigations, to be completed within 8 months of a school receiving a notice that an investigation has opened. So not notice of allegations. Once the school is notified, which is protocol, that they are being investigated, it has to conclude in 8 months. Here's the second point. The NCAA cannot investigate violations that were alleged to have happened more than 2 years before the notice of investigation was sent to a school. The current statute of limitations is 4 years, but the NCAA, I'm editorializing here, works around that by using violations from years, sometimes decades ago, to further strengthen their arguments. It's pathetic, but they do it. Point number 3. The bill would prohibit the NCAA from using, quote, confidential sources as evidence for a decision. And the final big point, a school can appeal punishments by using a 3-arbiter panel different from the NCAA's current appeals committee. So, in short, the bill will do these 4 things. It's wordy, but here's kind of a summary for you. The bill will do these 4 things. It will, getting a scam call here. It will require the NCAA investigations to be complete in 8 months, prohibit schools from being punished for violations that occurred over 2 years prior, prohibit the NCAA from using confidential sources, and requires the NCAA to submit an annual report to the Attorney General, giving the schools proper checks and balances for the investigative process. That was very wordy. Your thoughts?
Well, on the surface, I like what's being said here. I definitely like the idea of having a time frame on the NCAA. It's ridiculous that these things take as long as they do. Doesn't make any sense, and I know a lot of that is sometimes the universities try to hide things and try to, I get that, but 8 months is plenty of time to put a case together, just to get the violations in order and move forward. So I don't have a problem with any of that. I don't have a problem with anything you said. I do worry that we have possibly the 2 most inept organizations in the world working together, the American federal government and the NCAA. Feels like, like it's the blind leading the blind a little bit. But I'm willing to give it a look. And I like I said, on the surface, what they're saying makes a lot of sense.
That's the thing, though, and you nailed it. This all sounds good, but we know how Congress operates, right? to get bills passed, often slip things into these bills that don't belong or are unrelated, or it's dragged out, or it doesn't cover all the bases. And again, I ask, don't you have anything better to do?
You would think.
I mean, I appreciate it, but don't you have anything better to do, Marcia, Corey? Anyway, somebody says, I hate the idea on the text line that politicians controlling college sports, and that's all I've got to say about that. Marsha Blackburn's a Mississippi State graduate. I did not know that.
She is. She's
How about that?
Yeah.
That is interesting. I would love to know. She's from Laurel.
Yeah.
Did not know that. Did not know that. That's interesting. I would love to know what Roger Wicker thinks about this, because he's been involved in college sports in the past.
Yeah.
He's been part of committees that have grilled Mark Emmert. I mean, he's been in the room. He's been part of the NIL conversation, which luckily, when Congress tried to insert themselves in that, they didn't get anywhere, because what they were trying to do would have actually ruined college sports, making them paid employees, 50% revenue split, all that stuff. That would have ruined it. Luckily, that didn't happen. But maybe, Roger Wicker is usually reserved for Gerard or Paul. Maybe we should get him on the phone and say, hey Raj, you going to be
Hey, Raj. Not hey, Senator.
No.
Hey, Raj.
We're more casual around here.
We're more casual. It's a sports show. R. Wick, tell me what's up.
You support this? You going to be a part of it? I would love to know. I would love to know, since he's been engaged in sports.
But we're adding a rider where you can't talk about certain things in the classroom. Oh, well, never mind.
Yeah, and Cory Booker was a college athlete.
Yeah.
So he's got that in his background for sure. But I like it, but the Department of getting involved in this, does that open a door? Or could that be? People talk often about slippery slopes, right? We can't introduce NIL because it will create a slippery slope that leads to them being employees. We can't open up the transfer portal because that'll create a free agent, all this stuff. People are always worried about the residual effect of this, unintended consequences, slippery slope, whatever you want to call it. Do you see one here? Is there a chance that this becomes an issue with something that they aren't thinking?
Always a chance, but on the surface, you don't see it, right? It feels like streamlining what has been historically a painful, drawn-out process is always going to be a good idea.
He says, Borky, another Gallo visit. He's going to want you involved. I'm always down for. I haven't been on the Gallo show in a long time. It's been a while, and I don't know why. He used to like me. I don't know what happened.
Well, he found out you were a big pothead.
He did, and that ended our relationship.
You walked past him one time, and he was like, "Look at his eyes.
See,
he's on that marijuana."
Maybe that ruined it.
Smoking them tweeds.
I have offered, and I know you wouldn't like this, I've offered Paul many times to switch time slots. He won't go for it.
I'm glad, because, buddy, you're doing the first hour of that show without Brian Haydad. 6 to 7 ain't happening.
I've offered him many times. He won't take it. But, yeah, Paul, if you're listening, I know sometimes you do. I'd be happy to talk with you about this. Yeah. Just have your people call my people. Turns out we have the same people. They're right down the hall.
They all work in the same building.
They all work in the same building. People complain on the text line says, people also complain that the College Football Playoff Committee is incompetent. Any alternative to Mark Emmert making unilateral decisions has to be better. Here's another one. Congress needs to pass a bill that all bills should be passed in 8 months. I like that. They also,
yes.
Here's some more takes for you, Paul. They also need term limits, and they should not be allowed to buy and sell stocks while holding office. There's your political takes of the day. Mike in Grand Bay says, Perez loves me. I love Perez to death.
Yeah, Perez is great.
If you get the chance to meet Perez, go meet Perez. He's the best. But anyway, they may rush to drop the hammer on a program, but that's the thing. They don't have subpoena power.
8 months is not rushing. It just isn't.
It should be about how long this is always taking.
If you can't wrap up an investigation in 8 months, you didn't have anything.